The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, August 21st, Wednesday, August 22nd, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North on top of the Smoky Mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio, and we say hello to each and every one of you. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. I highly suggest you do, and do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and much, much more. Hey, I got an exciting event for you. September 28th through 30th. What are you doing? Come visit me, hang out with me at the first annual Caribou Paracon presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. Go to questers.ca right now, questers.ca. Click on the fall conference, scroll on down, get your tickets right now. We got some amazing speakers like Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, myself, and so many more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Ensuho. Sebastian Martin brings high-quality messages to the masses, so go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the Ensuho banner, and subscribe to the channel today. On this show, we have talked conspiracy theories before, but never this particular one. And with that, we need to go back in time to the 1960s, where the love was free and the music was fantastic. We take a look at the legendary Beatles. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with any conspiracy surrounding the Beatles, this show should leave you scratching your head. Why? Because there are many fans out there that believe the real Paul McCartney is dead. Yeah. And the one we know as Paul today is just a look-alike. Make sense? In 1969, a rumor started to spread that the real McCartney died in a car accident on November 9th, 1966. And some dude named Billy Shears was named as the replacement due to his eerie doppelganger looks to the real Paul. Now, since there are only two Beatles alive today, Paul and Ringo, this is one of those conspiracy theories that just will not go away. And tonight, we are talking about it with Tina Foster. Tina is a lawyer in Washington State and author of The Splitting Image, Exposing the Secret World of Doubles, Decoys, and Imposter-Replacements. She has researched the Paul is dead theory, and she's found some interesting information that she is going to share with us tonight. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, Everett Thiemer will be back with our news section called The Encounter from the SOR Newsroom. Tina Foster, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time, and I'm going to give a shout out to Michael W. Hall, who helped make this interview happen. So Mike's a good friend of this show, so thank you, Michael. Tina, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you here as well. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the whole fun stuff of the Paul is dead conspiracy. Have you always been a music fan?
Yeah, and I've been a Beatles fan for, since I was in high school. And, I researched them. I probably started preparing for this research now from when I was in high school, reading different books about the Beatles. And of course, a lot of it is disinformation, but nevertheless, I got a foundation for preparation for what I'm doing now. But I am an attorney too in Washington, and I'm friends with Michael Hall, the other paranormal lawyer, and we're actually neighbors. And so I got involved with this conspiracy theory when I was getting my LLM, which is a master's in law and letters. And I don't even remember what I was researching, but I came across a website on the Paul is dead conspiracy theory. And I thought I would just look into it for a couple of minutes and then move on, nothing to see here. But I fell down the rabbit hole pretty hard. And I had heard about the Paul is dead rumor before when I was researching it in high school, but I didn't think that it could possibly be true. But at that point, we didn't have so much access to the photos and the videos and everything that you could just compare on the internet. It's so easy now to just pull up like a million comps. And I've made a lot of comps myself. And so when I started looking, it was Sun King's website, Digalander something or other, but he's an Italian. Nobody's really sure who he is, but he was one of the early ones to start the research. And so I started looking into it, and it took me about 2 days of intensively scrutinizing pictures of Paul and Fall before I could see it. But then, something clicked in my head, and then I could see the difference. And it really freaked me out. And at first I was really upset. I cried for probably about 3 nights. And then I got angry. And I set out to expose it. So one reason why this theory never goes away is because of people like me who won't let it go away because it needs to be exposed.
Well, that's actually a good way to start this off, because we are going to be talking about for the next 2.5 hours about this theory and why you believe that this Paul is dead theory is actually true. A lot of people are going to criticize you, and probably have over the years, for your research into this topic. How do you deflect it? Now, I realize as a lawyer you have to have a pretty strong back, to take all of the criticism and the knives. But when you're putting your neck out there on the line for a conspiracy theory, that's an entirely different ballgame. There are millions of Beatles fans out there who grew up with them, who are brand new to them now, who just, kids who love the Beatles. And of course, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't like a Beatles song out there.
Yeah, well, haters are going to hate, as I say. People, well, they don't want to know the truth, for one thing. And there are a lot of sheeple out there. It's true. So, I try to get the information to people who have the eyes to see it. I know that there are a lot of people who are just going to refuse to look at the evidence. I mean, we have forensic scientists, too, who have found biometrical differences in their faces. I mean, that is proof that they're two different people. So, people refuse to accept evidence like that. There's nothing you can do for them. But, I'm not trying to reach everybody. I'm trying to reach the people who have the eyes to see it, basically.
So with the people out there who are believing in this, let's, before we get too heavy into this, were you a Beatles fan your entire life, or was this just something you got intrigued because of the conspiracy around Paul?
Oh, no, I was a fan before I believed the conspiracy. I became a fan when I was in high school. So I was born after the Beatles broke up. So this isn't something I grew up with, with the Beatles at the same time, contemporaneously. I mean, I was a fan later, but I know them very well, and I've studied them, especially for the past 10 years. I've studied them intensively, Paul and Fall, and I've been documenting, because I'm working on a book right now, and that's, going through the history of the Paul is dead conspiracy theory, going through the clues, going through the evidence, going through discrepancies in Fall's story versus what Paul said, and just trying to lay it out. And then also the motives behind, or potentially why somebody would want to take Paul out. And, kind of going into what was happening at the time with the drug movement, the social engineering agenda that was happening. You kind of have to have a very big picture view of what's going on in conspiracy land, I guess you could say, to even get your mind around this occurrence, because it's not a simple conspiracy theory. Like, it's not just an accident. It's not just, he was replaced, but it just goes so much deeper than that.
With everything that you have learned over time, has this become an obsession for you, or has this become just a passion of trying to get what you feel is the truth out there? And, there's a lot of people out there who I'm sure, and I realize you said earlier, haters have to hate, but are there some of your closer inner circle who look at you and kind of say, really, what are you wasting time on this for?
Well, when I first saw that Paul had been replaced, it really offended my sense of justice. Like, I was outraged that they could get away with this. This is like deception. This goes beyond like Saddam Hussein having doubles, or Kim Jong-il, or anything like that. This is like such a betrayal. And then what happened to the original Paul? Nobody seems to care about him. Like, this is a social justice issue too. And I've sort of always gravitated towards that. I was involved in environmental and animal law, because the animals are the underdogs, and, I try to help them, and I see Paul is just being swept under the rug, like the real Paul. He's disappearing. He's being subsumed by somebody else, and nobody's looking for him because officially nothing ever happened to him. So, yeah, I mean, okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I have been doing this for 10 years, doing this research, and I do go through periods where I'll be very active and then I'll kind of stop for a while and then I get active again. But I always seem to come back to it. And I think when I finish this book, I will take a break for a while. Because, I mean, it's a very difficult subject to research because officially it never happened. And there's tons of disinformation out there. I mean, there are disinformation mines that have been laid to try to trap unwary researchers so that they can be discredited. If they latch on to a particular story that turns out to be false, and it's like, oh, look, see, the whole thing is false. And it's like, you know how that works with disinformation, right? So
absolutely. And there are always little tidbits that kind of seem to pop up with these conspiracy theories that kind of give them a little bit more legs over the years, and it's a little piece of information. When you got started researching into this, tell us how difficult or easy it is to get the information, not the speculative with the songs, but just in regards to hardcore facts.
Well, the hardcore facts, I mean, we have tons of photographic evidence that it's not the same person. So I mentioned that we had two forensic scientists. Back in 2009, a team of forensic scientists from Italy actually set out to prove that the Paul is dead conspiracy theory was just a rumor. So they did biometrical analysis of the before and after, so before 66 and after, whenever the car crash supposedly happened in the fall of 66. So they got all these pictures together and they did their biometrical analysis, measurements and everything. And these are experts who'll go to court and establish identity of, whatever criminal case. And so they actually ended up proving that they were two different people. So for a double, you really only need one small physical difference. Like, for example, Kim Jong-il double was identified by a satellite because he was like 2.5 centimeters taller than the original Kim Jong-il. But with Paul McCartney, the double has at least 6 physical documented differences in just his face alone. So one was the skull shape was different. What the replacement, the double, his skull is more elongated than Paul's. Paul had kind of a round head. And that's impossible to change in a matter of months. I mean, as an adult, your skull shape isn't going to change. The tragus was different, which is a part of the ear that couldn't be explained. The nasal spine, too, was different, which couldn't be explained. And they said that the mustache that McCartney started wearing in late 66 was probably meant to hide the different nasal spine. The jawline was different, and it had before Paul had there were 2 angles in the jaw, and then there was just one, and the difference was 6%, which was more than error. That couldn't be explained by just error because it was too great of a difference. The palate was larger in McCartney in the double, and the teeth were also different. So there was Paul had his upper right canine was kind of turned or twisted because he had a small palate and it caused his teeth to be misaligned. And then with Fall, that's not there anymore. Didn't have the same teeth, basically. So that's 6 differences right there, and there are more. because people over the years we've found many more differences. But I think the forensic scientists just decided to say, we found 6. That's more than enough to prove these are different people.
Since we're on the topic of forensic science in regards to this case, how can we trust their study if they haven't truly examined Paul McCartney physically, face to face, number one, but number two, wouldn't DNA or anything along those lines be able to tell us whether or not Mr. McCartney is real?
Well, you don't need to have the person physically examined. You can use photographs. So they had a large assortment of photographs that they grouped into, before the supposed car crash and then after the car crash. And that's what they measured. And that's a pretty common technique. I mean, there was a Dr. Dieter Buhmann who determined that there were multiple Saddam Husseins using that same method. This is just forensic science. That's what they do. Now, as far as evidence goes, photographs are more than sufficient to come into court. Photographs, voice prints, anything that has a unique identifier. So, fingerprint, anything like that. So DNA too, of course, but you don't need DNA.
Well, but DNA wouldn't DNA clear this up once and for all? I mean, Paul McCartney, he is shaking hands with a number of people. His fingerprints are absolutely everywhere.
Well, the forensic scientist Carlesi and Gavazzini suggested that if he wanted to clear it up, he could submit DNA. The problem is, where do you get Paul's DNA from, and how do you prove that it was Paul's? Because there's no chain of evidence. If you have a criminal case, the police will collect the evidence, and everybody knows who has it at each stage. But how do we know that it's actually the original Paul's evidence? Well,
let's go back. Go ahead, finish up, please.
Well, people have suggested that THAL could compare his DNA to Paul's brother, Mike McGeer, but that's very unlikely to happen, that they're going to willingly do that. I would be shocked if that happened.
What I don't understand here is where, if we go back in time, is the alleged dead Paul McCartney laying to rest? Because back then cremation really wasn't a big thing.
Oh, I think he was dumped in Puget Sound. I think the evidence shows that the last time we see the original Paul McCartney was at the Seattle show, August 25th, 1966. And that was for sure Paul. After that, it gets a little dicey.
But the claim is that he was killed in a traffic accident in 1966-67.
Yeah, that's the claim, but there's tons of disinformation, and people have made up lots of stories to explain what they don't know. Fred Laborde was one of the first to write about what happened, and he admitted he made up a lot of the story. So you kind of have to scrap all that and say, first of all, was it an accident? I think it's unlikely that it was an accident because it was so well planned and they had a double in place so quickly. Within 2 days, the guy stepped in as a passable Paul McCartney. So at the LA press conference on August 28th, we see Fall appear, his first appearance. That's 2 days. Now, it takes time to find a double, and it takes time to train one. So...
Well, I get that, and I understand that, but let's go down this road, because we're in conspiracy talk, so I'm not going to lie, I got a little bit of tinfoil on my head right now. just in case the aliens show up, and Michael W. Hall knows all about that. I'm sure he's laughing at that if he's listening. Hi, Michael. But nonetheless, let's go down this Seattle route, because that is a route that I have never heard before. You're saying that the last known sighting of the real Paul McCartney was in Seattle in 1966. What makes you believe that he was killed in Puget Sound?
Well, that is the body of water that's off of Seattle, and we have some clues like Octopus's Garden that suggest that he was laying to rest or laid to rest in the water, you know. If that's the last place we see Paul, then, you know, and it's also like another clue that it could have happened in Seattle was the walrus was Paul, which is a pretty well-known clue, which actually was put in the song Glass Onion before people were talking widely about Paul is dead. But there is a building in downtown Seattle called the Arctic Building, which has 17 walruses on it. So the Beatles stayed downtown Seattle. They probably saw that building, and they might be dropping an indirect hint that there's a connection there.
It wouldn't have anything to do with the West Coast having a walrus population?
I mean, that's possible too.
Like, I'm not trying to be a dick here. Pardon me, but I mean, I want to believe this because I love conspiracy theories. I really do. But for some reason, this one is difficult to swallow because it doesn't make sense.
Well, it doesn't make sense because you don't have like the whole background or like the broader there's like a broader context that this fits into, and then you have to know about the social engineering agenda, the MK Ultra, the LSD, the Tavistock Institute. Like there's this whole other larger picture.
But do you know how hard it would be to find a clone of Paul McCartney who looks almost identical, who is left-handed, who plays the guitar the exact same way?
Well, first of all, he's not a clone. He's noticeably different looking, and he's probably not even left-handed. There's definitely evidence that he's not left-handed, but he can always pretend to be left-handed. But I mean, I wrote this book, The Splitting Image, as a background introduction to this conspiracy because people have such a hard time believing that doubles can be found. It's really not that hard.
Well, please, honestly, and I don't say this to sound spiteful or anything like that, but educate me. I want to know. I want to know what are the big differences besides the facial recognition that lead us to believe that this is an imposter?
Well, all you need is one physical difference. We have at least 6. Actually, we have more than that. We just have 6 that forensic scientists actually documented. I mean, that's proof. That's proof right there that it's a different person. Now, as far as the explanation for why all of that happens, you know, I have my theories, but it's proven it's a different person. You need one physical difference is enough. But, I mean, in addition to the tragus and the nasal spine and the jawline and the palate, the teeth, the skull shape, we also have different eyebrows, different eye color, different ears. We have different arm hair, different height. Fall is probably 2 to 3 inches taller than Paul was. And we can tell because you stand him next to Ringo, stand him next to Jane Asher, stand him next to Paul's father. You can see he's much taller. And you can see the feet. You can see they're not wearing heels. I mean, we're not stupid. We know to look for that. Wearing sneakers,
Right.
flash.
Right. Okay. Well, let's look at this, though. Why cover it up? If he did die in 1966 or early 1967, and there is some speculation to both, why cover it up? What was the entire purpose of this? Because bands previous to this and bands moving forward have had members die, whether it's car accidents, plane accidents, cancer, whatever it may be, and there was never any cover-up about that. Why the Beatles?
Well, this is why you need the larger context of the social engineering agenda. It's basically because the band was so popular and so influential that they could be used to promote the drug agenda, the social engineering agenda. And that also is one reason why I don't think that it was an accident, because if it had been an accident, it would have been hard to cover it up. But it was like they were ready. They had it all laid out and ready to go. And small reports of an accident have leaked out or were planted. And there's one, for example, that was in January of 1967, but it seems to be a disinformation story. You can poke holes in it. So it's like, it seems to be a disinformation story meant to explain why there's this Paul is dead legend, but it has a lot of problems with it. So it's like, yeah. Anyway, I'm talking about it in my book, but.
Well, let's get to this social engineering. Why at that point in time would it have been so easy to do, or why would the record label want to do this rather than just replace it if Paul McCartney really died? We saw it with the Rolling Stones. Later on, we saw it with Led Zeppelin, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison. And yes, there are conspiracies around a couple of those as to whether or not they were murdered or whether they were actually, died of drugs or alcohol. But nonetheless, this has happened before. I mean, it's rock and roll. Things happen. You move on.
Yeah, well, okay, first you have to realize how popular and influential the Beatles were. So, and then also how influential music is and drugs in combination. So if you look at how the powers that be wanted to use LSD for mind control purposes, you've got to see then that they were trying to hook that in with the music. So, let's see, there's a quote here that I had from, Timothy Leary was one of the proponents of LSD, and he also admitted to being a CIA agent and fighting the war for consciousness. And he praised Sgt. Pepper for being basically a drug album, which was also admitted by McCartney, and a complete celebration of LSD is how he put it. And so Leary was talking about, he had a quote about the brainwashing effect of LSD combined with psychedelic music. And Leary said, the Sgt. Pepper album compresses the evolutionary development of musicology and much of the history of Eastern and Western sounding a new tympanic complexity. Then add psychedelic drugs, millions of kids turned on pharmacologically, listening to stoned-out electronic music designed specifically for the stoned-out, long-haired minstrels. This is the most powerful brainwashing device our planet has ever known.
I understand the lure of LSD and the ties to the government and MK Ultra and other programs like that. I don't think there is any denying that, the CIA ran a very, very large drug program, especially involving dead soldiers coming back from Vietnam and hiding drugs like hash and heroin and other things in the cadavers of the soldiers coming back. And I can understand the entire drug cause, but to find someone that quickly to be a world-class musician, playing left-handed, singing the way he does, playing piano the way he does, that just seems a little far-fetched to a lot of people out there.
Well, okay, first of all, a world-class musician, we don't know that he plays at all. We don't know that he's written anything. We know that Paul's song, She's Leaving Home, was on Sgt. Pepper, and that was proven by voice prints. So Paul had said that they recorded everything they wrote. So no doubt he had left a lot of music behind, possibly, well, we know he left at least one song behind, She's Leaving Home. He might have left other stuff behind, and THAL has certainly never come close to the success that Paul did. I've seen him play in concert where he's supposedly playing bass, but then he's clearly not playing, but you can still hear the bass. So, is he playing to a click track? There's all sorts of studio magic that can go on to make people think that he's singing or playing. And we also know that some of the songs were sped up and slowed down to make the voices match better, as the case may be. But the voice prints, we know that at least on 2 songs post Paul, that there were 2 different voice doubles. And we know that from Dr. Henry Truby, who actually pioneered the technology of voice prints, which are admissible in court. But he analyzed Yesterday, which was 1965, and definitely Paul. And then he analyzed Penny Lane, which was 1967, and Hey Jude, which was 1968. And he said there were 3 different voices.
So you're saying that the trickery was happening inside the studio, much like we see Milli Vanilli and what happened to them in the late 80s, early 90s.
Exactly.
Does that not sound a little far-fetched? Considering that some of the biggest bands on the Beatles scale, thinking the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, they weren't doing it, and they both lost members as well?
I don't really have any opinion about the other bands. I just know the Beatles, and I know Paul was replaced, and however they managed to pull this off, I'm saying that there is studio trickery that goes on that we know about.
Oh, absolutely.
We know exactly. Milli Vanilli. People pretend to play. They pretend to write songs. What Milli Vanilli did compared to what THAL has done pales in comparison. This is. They just sang songs. They didn't replace somebody probably dead. This just goes beyond. I think this is like such an evil thing that happened that most people can't even go there. They don't want to know the truth. Like Heather Mills said, people don't want to know the truth. They would be too devastated. Heather Mills found out. And
I
she wasn't
get
willing
that.
to go along with it.
I get that. And you know, when you talk about the studios, I mean, all you have to do is look at music today. Not everybody is an Axl Rose who sounds just perfect every single night. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to be eye-rolling me, but I am a giant GNR fan, and because I got the microphone, I get the last word on that one. But nonetheless, you know, I mean, whether it's a lot of pop artists from, you know, Janet Jackson to Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and many others, I mean, they've all been caught lip-syncing. They all have. It's like part of the game now where a lot of these people probably can't sing in real life, but they just have a persona and an image to keep up, and that's the way they've been able to make their career. So I can understand, you know, taking that path down the road. But in 1966, while the Beatles were in their heyday, I can also see where you're going with this, because why would the band want to kill any momentum that they had at that time? I mean, as John once said, I mean, they were bigger than Jesus, or more popular than Jesus. And I think at that time, that was probably, as controversial as that statement was, that it was probably true. And the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to break momentum when you have it, because it doesn't last forever. So I can see where you're going with this. So in the end, let's learn a little bit about Billy Spears then. Who is Billy Spears?
Billy Shears.
Shears, I apologize.
No, it's fine. I mean, well, what you were saying about the momentum, I mean, the Beatles decided to never tour again. They announced they would never tour again. And just at the end of the 66 tour, during the summer of 66, they all planned on coming back to America. They had never thought about not touring again. They said it would basically be impossible to not tour because their fans wouldn't stand for it. So then after the last concert, you know, the end of August 66, they're never going to tour again, only go in the studio. Well, you know, guess what? It's easier to manipulate things in the studio. And then, you know, now he goes out and he plays in concert, but, you know, there was a long period where they didn't. And I think it was probably because they were worried that it would be too obvious, like the height difference, the difference in chemistry. I mean, people were going to be able to tell, and people did notice. I mean, the fact that we're talking about this, in my opinion, proves that Fylth is a failure as a double, because you should not notice a double. I mean, just imagine like a CIA agent, a spy who is, you know, pretending to be somebody else, and he is noticed. I mean, his life could be on the line. It's serious business. That, yeah. So I mean, Fall is not a good double because people notice. They were actually talking about it in 67 already. You know, it's like Fall or Billy Shears. What he always wants to say, oh, it's because I was barefoot on Abbey Road that people think that, you know, Paul is dead. It's like, no, people were talking about it 2 years before Abbey Road. I mean, there was even a refutation in the Beatles Monthly magazine saying that, you know, there's no truth to it, that Paul died. I mean, that's 2 years before Abbey Road. So, anyway, but okay, so Billy Shears is what people call the replacement. I mean, it's like after the last concert, the U.S. tour ended, McCartney had this idea of having this new band. They weren't the Beatles anymore. It was Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which is another clue. I mean, I'm telling you, it's not the same band. It's a funeral scene. It's an omitted funeral scene, the album cover. It's, you know, it's got tons of clues on it about what happened.
Well, what are some, for those people who are out there who maybe haven't seen the album cover or studied it as closely, tell us about that album cover. What are those clues?
Well, I mean, it's a grave scene. It's a funeral scene. You've got the open dirt. You've got Beatles on it. You've got the left-handed bass in flowers. You've got Paul written on in flowers. They've got all the people standing there that they liked or admired. They've got the new Beatles front and center, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and then the original Beatles, the Fab Four, over to the side as wax effigies in effect. People that are on the cover, like Bob Dylan, who supposedly was killed in a motorcycle accident and replaced. That was a story that went around. Aleister Crowley was going to be on it twice, but he's only on it once. And of course, he was a co-founder of the Tavistock Institute, MI5 agent, also a Satanist and occultist, but who experimented with drugs, and so there are these people that are on the cover that are on there for a reason, either because of their ties to intelligence or because of the stories that are associated with them, like they died in an accident or were killed or, something usually relevant about these people. Anyway, I mean, the clues are always open to interpretation, and I don't rely on clues to make my case. I rely on the actual evidence, like forensic proof that it's a different person, voice prints. Voice prints are not dispositive because just because somebody else sang doesn't mean that Paul was permanently replaced, but the fact that the pictures prove that he was permanently replaced, and that's enough. But then the voice prints on top of that is just it's sort of like it helps, because why would they have somebody else singing in the studio when it's supposedly Paul McCartney, who had a beautiful voice? Like, why would they want somebody else to sing? It's also fraud, in my opinion, like Milli Vanilli-ish. Like, they're saying it's Paul, but it's not. So, yeah.
I want to ask you about the band members, because at no time publicly did John, George, or Ringo ever say anything. Do you think they were contractually obligated, or did they have a say in all of this if this conspiracy is real?
Well, in 2011, Ringo actually said he was the last remaining Beatle. So these people, they will walk it up to the line and what they can say, I think, without getting into trouble. And, I mean, John Lennon had the song, How Do You Sleep? He's like, those freaks was right when they said you was dead. I mean, there's actually a lot of stuff out there where they're saying, they're hinting at it heavily, that it's, they're hinting without coming right out and saying it.
Yeah, but going on hints or anything like that, why couldn't they at this point just come out and say? Why wouldn't George Harrison on his deathbed come out and say, you know what, we got a problem here, or something along those lines? When you're on your deathbed, you really have nothing to lose, and even if they took away royalties, he's still a multi-millionaire, probably 300 times over.
Well, okay, Heather Mills, when she was close to spilling the beans, she was getting death threats. So I'm speculating about why George Harrison wouldn't say anything. He was attacked by somebody with a knife, which was a very strange thing. But he could be worried about his family. I mean, we don't know what kind of threats, bribes, blackmail was going on behind the scenes. Something was going on to keep the people quiet. Mal Evans was killed when his book was about to come out. He was shot to death by the police. and his book was lost. He was, I don't know if you know who Mal Evans was. He was the Beatles roadie for 10 years. He was about to publish a tell-all book about his experiences, and right before he was going to take it to the publisher, he gets shot to death by the police. The book gets lost. His suitcase full of Beatles memorabilia gets lost. Even his ashes that get sent back to England, they get lost. So eventually, parts of his book were published, but redacted, basically. So we don't know what he was going to say. But he did say that he had helped write songs on Sgt. Pepper. So he helped write Sgt. Pepper theme song and Fixing a Hole. And he actually had reached a settlement agreement with McCartney about royalties for that right before he was killed. So, I mean, McCartney is constantly wanting to work with people, Denny Lane, Mal Evans, Kanye West, Rihanna. I mean, he wanted to work with George Harrison. He said, no way, never. But Paul, he wrote Yesterday on his own, Eleanor Rigby on his own. He did a lot of stuff on his own. Like he supposedly wrote a lot of stuff with John Lennon, and they had everything credited to both of them equally. But Paul did a lot of stuff just on his own. And in fact, Yesterday, the label wanted to release it as the Paul McCartney solo, but John Lennon didn't want that to happen, so they just went ahead and released it as a Beatles song. But Paul is perfectly capable of writing songs on his own, but Paul seems to need somebody to help him. It's like Mull of Kintyre, he co-wrote with Denny Lane.
Yeah, but anybody can write a song.
Anybody can write a number one hit. That's like consecutively number one hits.
I don't. You know what?
Hit after number one hit.
My entire landscape of people writing songs ended when Rihanna started crying about that it took 9 people to write a number one hit, where the majority of lyrics are cake. The word cake. It's ridiculous. So, I'm a little fickle on that as a music fan. But nonetheless, it would take some talent, especially back then with the talent in music, to write a number one hit. And if this was an imposter writing this song, I mean, that's like hitting the lottery.
We don't know what happens behind the scenes with Fall at all. We don't know. We can only speculate. We know Paul was capable of writing number one hits, but we don't know what Fall is capable of. We know he worked with other people, maybe, and he probably used Paul's stuff. I mean, George Harrison even said that he ran out of good songs of his own that fall. I mean, he didn't. He said McCartney or, Paul, quote, in quotes, had run out of good songs of his own, which I take as a clue that he'd run out of Paul's songs to use. Maybe.
For some people, I mean, their creativity goes on for years, even after, everything's going. I mean, there's so many bands that are still going today producing brand new music.
Well, I mean, I don't see how anybody could argue that Fall has ever reached anything like Yesterday or Eleanor Rigby. He hasn't. He just doesn't have the chops, in my opinion. But, I'm not the only one who thinks that.
Yeah, but Paul hasn't had a number one hit in a long time, probably since he was with Wings.
Back in 1964, the Beatles had the top 5 songs one week, I don't know if it was just for 1 week, but on the charts, the top 5 songs, starting with Can't Buy Me Love. I mean, this was an incredible talent that these people had that is just not there anymore.
Okay, to use a Guns N' Roses reference, in 1992, they became the first band to have number 1 and number 2 slots taken when Use Your Illusions 1 and 2 were released on the same day in a double album. So it does happen. It's not unprecedented. It's just rare.
Yeah, well, I mean, Beatles had, I mean, they had their singles were always number ones until THAL stepped in, basically. And then, you know, his solo stuff has never come close to matching Paul's songs.
Well, I mean, okay, but you could say that too. He didn't have Ringo, John, or George with him.
But he didn't need them because he did Yesterday and Eleanor Rigby all on his own.
True, and Slash created Anastasia with Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators after leaving Guns N' Roses. The talent is still there, but you still need the magic of the band. That's what makes music so beautiful, is when these five people, 6 people come together, or 4 people in the Beatles' case, and just make some magic happen. That's the beauty of music.
Yeah, but Paul didn't need it. He could just do it all on his own. But, you know, I mean, people have contacted me and said, you know, this has really been a point of confusion for musicologists because usually people improve and they could tell that Paul was a genius and they were really confused about what happened after. Because they can't go there that is not the same person.
Tina, I apologize. I'm going to cut you off right there. We got to go to our first break of the night. Tina Foster is our guest tonight. Intriguing tale in the conspiracy theory world. Is Paul McCartney, the real Paul McCartney, dead? Or is he alive? What side do you fall on? If you're in one of the chat rooms, I want to hear your story. What do you think? We got more with Tina. By the way, I want you to go check out her book. Her book is The Splitting Image, Exposing the Secret World of Doubles, Decoys, and Imposter-Replacements. It's a great read. Check it on out. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I'm your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news and there's the encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow night on the show, Simon Fraser University professor Paul Kingsbury, along with ufologist Charles Lamoureux, join us to talk all things paranormal. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. Hello to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Thank you so much for tuning us in. Don't forget, you can also check out our archives for free. Go to youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Catacresis. Catacresis is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Don't forget the first annual Caribou Paracon, sponsored by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers, goes September 28th through 30th, right here in beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Come on up for that. You can get your tickets at questers.ca right now. That's questers.ca. Click on the fall conference. Get your butts up here. We want to see you. I want to meet all of our Spaced Out Radio listeners who want to come on up. Come hang out with me, Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, and so many more. Tonight we are talking with author Tina Foster. Her latest book is called The Splitting Image, Exposing the Secret World of Doubles, Decoys, and Imposter Replacements. And tonight we have Tina talking about a conspiracy regarding the Beatles, whether or not the original Paul McCartney is dead or not. A lot of people do not believe this one. Tina thinks otherwise, says the evidence is right out there. Tina, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Now, right before the break, we were talking about the remaining Beatles, why they never came out with the fact that Paul is an imposter. But this leads to another question. What about Paul's family? Have they ever said anything that would lead us down the road that this conspiracy is real? Because, I mean, if by chance he did die in Puget Sound, which is one of the theories that you have given us tonight, the other is a possible car accident on icy roads, November of 1966, there's a number of theories.
Oh, we know November is way too late for it to have happened. Other people say September. November is not possible because fall was in Kenya at that point, so that can be rolled out right there. But the other Beatles have hinted at Paul or Paul being an imposter. And then you asked about the family members. Well, actually, Mike McGear showed up. He's Paul's younger brother, and he was on the Mike Douglas show back in November '69 when all this was international news. And journalist Christopher Glenn was on the show talking about the Paul is dead clues, that people had found in the songs and on the album covers. And so Mike McGear was sitting in the audience. And of course, he's indignant that people could be talking about this. But he says, he's asked, well, when was the last time you saw Paul? And he said, at his funeral. And he said that he was asked if he thought that the Paul is dead legend were a hoax. And he said, no, I think he's dead all right. So, he's acting like he's just so outraged that people could be talking about it, but he never actually denies it. And he also engages in deceptive behavior that this CIA agent lady, author, she was talking about how people, Susan Carnicero was the author of Spy the Lie, and she talks about deceptive behavior that people engage in. And one thing that Mike McGear did was that he attacked Christopher Glenn as being boring. So he's trying to deflect. And you just have to watch it. It's on YouTube, but you'll see what I mean. It's a very strange encounter. But yeah, so as far as like other family members, we talked about Heather Mills, who it seems she found out. She freaked. She said, I've left you. Protect me and I'll say nothing. Something so awful happened, and it wasn't, somebody she loved had betrayed her immensely, and it wasn't by infidelity or anything like that. And she said that she had a box of evidence, and somebody was so afraid of the truth coming out that she was getting death threats. She had a box of evidence that she gave to someone in case they killed her, that the truth would come out. And then, of course, she got a big payment from the divorce, and she hasn't said anything. So, but she came very close. But she was smart because she protected herself. Mal Evans had said, he told his collaborator on the book, John Hurney, he was about to publish this tell-all book, and he told his collaborator to make sure the book gets published if anything happened to him. He said that night that he got killed that he apparently did not protect himself adequately like Heather Mills did. That another person is Brian Epstein, who was their manager. Now, he supposedly overdosed on drugs back in '67. But, who knows if it was an accident or suicide, or it doesn't seem like it was suicide because he was in good spirits and he was about to go join the Beatles in Wales to go to this Maharishi Mahesh Yogi retreat. And then he died of an overdose. But that could have been an accident, but we don't really know exactly what happened there, of course. Because, there's so much disinformation, obfuscation, and none of this happened officially anyway. So, trying to figure out what happened is legal research is a lot easier than this, let me tell you that. Yeah.
So why would Paul, after the Beatles broke up, continue his music career with Wings? He wouldn't need the money. It would have been a clean exit, yet he continued the musical path.
Yeah, if THAL had lain low, he probably would have gotten away with it. But he, like you said, he insisted on going out there, and in my opinion, it's probably just ego. He probably is or thinks he's a musician. And he has this thing to prove because he is pretending to be a far superior musician, in my opinion, and somebody who was very talented and everybody loved. And just imagine being in that position. He has this love-hate relationship with Paul, and Paul is always saying things basically telling you that he's an imposter. He'll say stuff well, I don't want to sound schizophrenic, but really I'm two people. There are tons of quotes like that. I have them documented in my upcoming Paul is Dead book. But, he probably has something to prove. That's probably why he keeps trying to put this music out. His last songs, Egypt Station, they've just been trounced. It's For You, and it's just oh, please stop. Just stop. It's he's probably 80. His real age is probably 81. And he's talking about come on to me, and it's not dignified at this point, but he's probably still trying to prove himself, to get that hit before he retires. And, Paul had said in 66, around that time, it was still Paul, he said that it would be embarrassing to still be performing on stage like they were in their 30s. He said, well, when I'm 80, I'll probably be writing, writing and not out performing. So it's that's another thing that is not it's a mismatch. Paul probably would not be out doing that, but Paul is still trying to be like a 24-year-old Paul. Like, he can never really evolve past that.
I get that. And, going back to, that year of 1969 where this rumor really started to gain some traction, that was also the same month that Capitol Records stated that the Beatles had broken their all-time sales records because people were absolutely trying to hear whether or not it was the real Paul McCartney. So sometimes it can be an ugly little lie that leads to a lot of record sales.
Yeah, I mean, some people do speculate that the Paul is dead rumor was started to increase record sales. The Beatles always denied that. And some other people have pointed out that, because the Beatles weren't selling records before that, like, no, of course they were selling records, They were like one of the most popular bands in history. Why would they need to make up some weird story about one of their people being dead? But, people were buying records just to play them backwards, and they're probably scratching the heck out of their records. They want to hear, one of the famous backwards clues was "Turn Me On, Dead Man" when you played Revolution number 9 backwards. That was like one of the earliest clues that came out. So, and reverse speech is actually a thing. It's even, from what I've read, is that it's even been accepted as evidence or been used by the police in Oregon. I don't know whether it was actually used in a court, but the reverse speech was used by police in Oregon to help with their investigation. So the theory is that this is David John Oates, who's pioneered the research into reverse speech. He's an Australian researcher, and he says that the communication, it's like a two-way thing. So when you speak forward, that the truth will come out in the reverse, and other information can be revealed in the reverse speech.
But a lot of people have tried to play albums backwards and find some sort of message. That happened with Kiss over the years. It happened to bands like Wasp, Metallica, Aerosmith. It happened to a lot of heavy metal bands. Marilyn Manson even. I mean, even when you play the record forward, he was blamed for the Columbine shootings. So a lot of people do try to find some sort of hidden message to blame music that is, let's say, radical for its times. Isn't it just maybe that people are just trying to look for an excuse or a way to confirm something that really isn't there?
Oh, some of it is very clear to hear. So if you play the Sgt. Pepper reprise backwards, you can very, very clearly hear it was a fake mustache. So, I mean, the reverse speech is not that everything is perfectly clear in reverse. It's like there will be a lot of mumbo jumbo, and then there will be sections that are clear. So like there's this other song, Born to Be Bad, I think is what McCartney's song is called. In reverse, it's clear to hear, I'll now be with CIA. So some of these reverse clues are actually pretty shocking. But there are tons of them that say Paul is dead, Paul is bloody. I mean, it's like they're almost like, I mean, there are just so many. Like 15 songs have that. It's crazy.
This almost reminds me of the conspiracy of Elvis. Because there was somebody, I mean, he died in 1976. All right. And it was kind of a grotesque type death, a heart attack type death that caused by other things. And people still will not give up on that conspiracy that he's, living in Kalamazoo or living in Milwaukee or wherever. And there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Elvis impersonators over the last 40-some years since the king has been dead. And it's never been provable that he isn't dead either. So when you look at it, Paul McCartney doesn't have a lot of people who are, portraying him per se. Not as much as Elvis. And yet here we are with the same type of conspiracy.
Well, I mean, as far as I know, Elvis doesn't have, it's a completely different thing because he's dead, but people think he's alive. But in this case, we have proof that it's not the same Paul. So, and then we have a ton of clues and reverse speech that he's dead. Plus, he hasn't been seen for over 50 years, which is more than enough in probate law to have somebody declared dead. I mean, common law is 7 years, and the Uniform Probate Code, it's 5 years. So, as American law, I don't know what it would be in England, but, 50 years. Not somebody.
Right, but if you take music, okay, we get attached to these artists. We really do. Okay, because their music touches us. Their music takes us to places that we never thought we could go in life. I think we all have that favorite band, that favorite song. Like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do once, Axl Rose finally dies. I don't know what I'm going to do. I really don't. And believe it or not, I think about that. But nonetheless, there are so many conspiracies in the music field. All right, you take Elvis. The big clue there for conspiracy theorists is his headstone that has one too many A's on it. You take Jimi Hendrix, who many believe was murdered by his former manager. Same as Jim Morrison. Tupac Shakur, where they believe he was producing music under Machiavelli and that Suge Knight had something to do with covering up the murder because he just did not want to be a part of the popularity of the music scene anymore. And there's alleged videos of Tupac Shakur still meandering around in certain areas. So the music scene is not, above the conspiracy theory type. When you put it all together with the way music is it not just the fans wanting to get involved on a more personal level more than it is truly a conspiracy that some of these things happen?
Did you know that Jim Morrison's father was the admiral at the Gulf of Tonkin false flag?
I did not know that.
Yes, he was. So there is more going on in the music industry than people think. So, maybe check out David McGowan's research into the Laurel Canyon scene about how the military and the intelligence services have infiltrated the music industry and do control it. And that is basically the foundation of my theory about why the Beatles, why that would happen with Paul, that the band was hijacked. Removing Paul hijacked the band to promote a social engineering agenda.
So, but do you not think that this is maybe fans trying to hang on to something that isn't there because they love the band so much? They love the music so much. They bonded with it. It's become an important piece of their life.
Well,
I can tell you right now from personal experience, every listener that I have knows I'm a diehard GNR fan. They know my favorite song is Paradise City. And even my family and friends, they roll their eyes on it. Everybody who knows me knows that I am a Paradise City junkie. I listen to the song at least once a day. I'm that crazy about it. And there are other fans like that out there too.
Well, most people that look into Paul is dead don't believe it at first, don't want to believe it. I didn't believe it it took me 2 days to see that Paul had been replaced. But once I saw it, then I thought that it needs to be exposed. It's pretty evil. It's pretty it's beyond betrayal what they've done, the deception. It's so dark that I don't think most people can't even go there. It's like an evil beyond what most people can imagine. Just think about it. Killing somebody, or even if he just died, and putting in an imposter to take his place, to pretend to be him, that's evil. It's one thing if you have an imposter who is like Saddam Hussein double, or Stalin double, or even General Montgomery double that's used for psyops, for spreading disinformation. But to actually take somebody and imposter replace them, that's pretty evil. But it does happen. And it happened with Kim Jong-il, according to one professor in Tokyo, and also Saddam Hussein, according to his doctor.
Right. But you're also talking about people who suffered from extreme paranoia in the political realm, because most dictators, if they don't suffer from paranoia, that's usually when they get overthrown.
Well, I mean, no, they're smart because they're using doubles as decoys. But there are people that will use that against them and replace them for political reasons. So they will install the puppet double that they can trot out as needed. And that's basically what I'm suggesting happened with Paul.
Okay. So this leads to Billy Shears. How was he able to recreate Paul then to a near perfection?
Well, he doesn't do it to near perfection because we're sitting here talking about him. That is a fail.
Yeah, but Wings did pretty well.
But the fact that people found out he was a double, that's a fail. People were talking about his being an imposter. I mean, it was big news in 1969. People were already talking about it in 1967, so people noticed. That is not a good double. So, I mean, you think, okay, tell me why you think he recreates Paul to near perfection.
How he creates what?
How do you think he recreates Paul to near perfection? Because I don't see it.
Well, that's because I don't believe that Paul McCartney is dead. And therefore, when the Beatles broke up and he started Wings with his first wife, Linda, and trust me, I hate that song, Boy, I Love You, Girl, I Love You. I can't stand that one. All right, drives me nuts. But nonetheless, he had a pretty good career going on. And to be able to go from one successful band to another, although not as popular, that takes a lot of talent. It's been done very, very rare. Probably the latest incarnation of that would be Dave Grohl. When Nirvana split up due to Kurt Cobain's death, and there's a conspiracy there as well, he went on to form the Foo Fighters. And the Foo Fighters have become just as big, if not bigger, than Nirvana. It's rare for that to happen.
So, okay, you think it's the same person, even though there's forensic proof that it's not the same person?
DNA could prove that. Fingerprints can prove that.
But you don't need DNA. There is forensic proof using photographs by forensic scientists that it's not the same person. So how do you get around that?
Well, first off, I don't know the scientists who are taking this on.
Well, it's Francesco Gavazzini and Gabriele Carlisi.
But there's
forensic scientists in Italy.
There's also a lot of evidence out there, physical evidence, whether it's DNA from clothing, whether it's fingerprints from a car or a glass that he's sipped out of, that could easily be traced.
Well, I mean, Fall went to Japan in 1980 and was jailed for 10 days. And some people think it was because the fingerprints didn't match from when Paul was there in 66.
So it had nothing to do with the drugs.
Well, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. It seems an awful long time to have him locked up for marijuana.
Well, I mean, in today's standards, yes, but back then when Nancy Reagan was on her evil kick about drugs are bad, okay, and starting the DARE program, then the whole world was against drugs, and marijuana was the devil's doorway to get into heavier drugs of LSD, of hash, of heroin, and other types of narcotics. So, of course, in a society with Japan, which has a lot stricter rules that the population follows for a democracy, it would make sense that he was busted coming off a plane for carrying marijuana. And he had a large amount on him, too.
Well, maybe.
I mean, I don't want to throw the fact in that, that's just blatant. That's blatant to the society. I mean, I was about 10 years old when that happened, 12 years old. That's just obvious.
Well, he sent a double to give blood. 1984, there's a paternity test with Bettina Crispin in
Perfect.
Germany, and he admitted that he sent a double. He committed fraud on that blood test.
How did he do that?
Well, one, he admitted it to people, but two, the picture of the person that was giving the blood looked like Paul, but it wasn't. And the person who signed it was a right-hander, not a left-hander like Paul was. And so, there's your blood test right there. And of course, it's not going to be a match because Paul was the one giving the blood supply, sample.
Well, there you have the DNA.
Father. Paul was the father, but Paul was the one giving the blood sample. So of course, there's not going to be a match.
Or maybe it was just a different father and she was just trying to cash in.
Well, I mean, the mother says it was Paul, but, she could be lying, sure.
I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I mean, because let's face it, there are a lot. All you got to do is watch Maury Povich to prove whether or not you're the father.
Well, it's just never going to be proven because Paul wasn't the one giving the blood sample. But he had actually made child support payments. The only reason why there was a suit was because Paul stopped paying. It's like, why should he? Because he knows he's never going to be declared the father. He knows it. He had nothing to do with the girl.
Maybe because DNA proved that he wasn't the dad.
No, Paul absolutely was not the father. It was Paul who was the father.
Are you saying this with a straight face right now?
I'm absolutely with a straight face. They know it's not the same person. Bettina Crispin knows it's not the same person. She knows it. She said it looks like Paul, but it's not Paul. They tried to reopen the case, but, of course the authorities aren't going to touch it. They commit fraud, which should toll the statute of limitations, but it's too much of a hot potato, a political hot potato.
Well, I get that, and I realize that, but, I'm going to shift gears here for a second here, because let's go down the theory that this is a selling point. The music companies like Capitol Records could make billions off of this, and they have made billions off of Beatles records and sales and merchandise along with the musicians. Could this be a way to just keep control of the music industry with the music from yesterday?
They would have made more money from the Beatles performing instead of just putting them in the studio. That's where they made most of their money, was from the live performances, not from record sales. They did not have good contracts for record sales. So if you're looking at a financial reason, their financial incentive would have been to keep performing live. They made thousands and thousands of dollars from one show.
But once again, we see bands all the time splitting up because they can no longer get along, whether it's on a personal level or on a business level. So many bands have split up because of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's clear that the Beatles post Paul couldn't stand each other. It's a completely different interaction between the four of them. That's obvious. There's animosity. They couldn't stand Paul.
So why didn't they fire him?
There's a whole, there's this whole deception, this whole psyop running that they have to play along with for whatever reason. Threats, bribe, blackmail. I don't know exactly what happened. I know some people were threatened and some people were killed.
So has that contract that would have kept that band together until they finally said we've had enough and broke up, has that contract ever come to fruition?
I don't know anything about any contracts, and I don't think anybody else does. What contract would that be? Is it out there to be seen?
Well,
or is it speculated that there's a contract?
Well, I just know that when you get into the business level of things, and I would assume you know this too, that usually contracts, especially with bands, as their name now becomes a business, needs contracts.
Well, McCartney sued the others to break up the Beatles, like in 1970, if that's what you're talking about.
And there was a lot of infighting going on.
Well, yeah, they couldn't stand him.
And that happens in bands all the time.
Well,
look at Creedence Clearwater Revival.
It doesn't really have any bearing on what happened with the Beatles, though.
Yeah, but some of the biggest bands in the world have split up because they couldn't handle it. Pink Floyd. Roger Waters and David Gilmour hated each other. And it's only been since they hit their late 60s, early 70s, that they've been able to patch things up, even though they've said they're not touring together anymore under the name Pink Floyd. Imagine the money that would be made if they put an album out together, even in their early 70s. It'd be $100 million record.
Okay.
Right? I mean, Creedence Clearwater Revival. John Fogerty has said that he is no longer interested in ever getting back CCR, and they made some of the most beautiful 60s music out there. That, I mean, Fortunate Son, Born on the Bayou, they were legendary tracks. Legendary. So this happens in music all the time, and I'm not seeing where this is any different with the Beatles.
You're not saying that they've started fighting? You don't see that was different?
Yeah, that they fought and broke up. I mean, that's just natural when your life is with someone. It's like professional sports.
So even Jeff Emmerich, who was one of their studio engineers, said that they completely changed in 5 months. He said that they had once been lifelong friends, and then they couldn't stand each other. And I mean, there's big change, big difference. They had been, fashionable, and then they were scruffy and unkempt, and just a big change.
And there was a lot of
67,
and there wasn't a drug out there that they weren't testing either.
Well, I mean,
and when you combine drugs and alcohol in a business setting, it usually doesn't go very well.
Paul was not a big drug user. The disinformation is that he was, and I'm sure Paul was, because Paul was used to sell LSD to the people. Paul wasn't going to do that.
I understand that. But if you take the situation, you can see now where tension is building. If Paul wasn't into the drug scene and the rest of the band members were, that would cause tension.
Well, we don't know if the other band members were or not, or whether it caused tension between them.
Well, it's a natural assumption that drugs, alcohol, and business don't mix very well together. You know that.
But I guess I don't see what your point is. It's like Paul was not a big drug user. So he wasn't going to sell drugs. He wasn't going to be part of the drug agenda.
Yes, but it would cause tension to the band breaking up.
Well, but that's years later. The band broke up in 70. Paul disappeared in late 66.
That's if you go by the original Paul.
That's if you go by the evidence, yeah.
Okay. Let's get to a question here from our audience. Isn't it common knowledge that Paul played left-handed but was typically right-handed?
No, that is absolutely not true. That's just information that's been put out. Paul said in 1963 he did everything left-handed. He had even written backwards. So people saying that, oh, Paul is right-handed, that's because Fall is right-handed and they're trying to make Paul fit in the Fall mold because they can't deal with the truth.
Changing someone's hands is very difficult.
Fall pretends to be left-handed. You know, doubles learn how to mimic their target. They study it. He might be an actor. He might really be a musician. He has learned to play left-handed. The guy is right-handed by nature. He does so many things right-handed. I mean, it's like so many documented instances where like, for example, you know, he'll go to take the bass right-handed and then he'll quickly correct himself, or, you know, he lights people's cigarettes with his right hand. He just does so many things right-handed. He does pretend on occasion to be left-handed, though. He always plays left-handed.
Let's get to some of the evidence that you have researched in regards to this case. What are some of the key moments here? I mean, we talked about the Sgt. Pepper cover. We talked about a couple of the songs that may have messages if you play them backwards. What are some of the key other pieces of evidence that you have found that have convinced you that this conspiracy theory is real?
Well, I mean, the best evidence is the forensic proof. I mean, it doesn't really get better than that. The faces are different. They're documented to be different. They're measured different. I mean, they're different eye color, different hair color, different personality, different voice. I mean, it's like, this is probably the worst double in history. Not convincing at all. Then there are the different voice prints. Tons of clues. Just 400 clues that have been found.
Okay, well, give us some of those clues. I mean, are they in the lyrics? Are they on other album covers? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, they're in the lyrics. There's the reverse speech. Okay, so lyrics like, well, Blue Jay Way has Paul is bloody forward and backwards. Turn Me On, Dead Man from Revolution 9. Paul is a dead man, miss him, miss him, miss him. Also on the White Album, I'm so tired. These were some of the early clues that were found. And of course, I mean, people look at Abbey Road and he's barefoot and he's, you know, got a cigarette in his right hand, which for people latched onto because, Paul is left-handed. So like, well, he's right-handed. That's a clue that it's not the same person. And then of course, Abbey Road also has like the white Beetle on it with the license plate LMW28F, which people said, oh, that's Paul would have been 28 if he had lived. And then they also looked at the procession of Abbey Road, like how the Beatles were crossing the road, saying that John Lennon was like, he's wearing white. He's the preacher, basically. And then Ringo was wearing a tux or suit, and he was the Undertaker. And then Paul was the corpse because he was barefoot. And then George was in jeans, so he was like the grave digger. And then, Let It Be too. Fall had red behind him. He was the only one that had a red background, where people thought that was standing for blood. And all of the pictures on Let It Be have been photoshopped. They've been tampered with. They've been compressed to make all of the heads look rounder than the original pictures. And also the beard on Fall makes his face look rounder, but it also helps to hide his face. So the facial hair is acts like a distractor, but also helps to hide the face. So when people say, oh, he looks different, oh, it's probably because he's got facial hair. Oh, it's because he's got long hair, which hides his ears, which are different. He's got Fall has unattached earlobes, whereas Paul had attached earlobes. And there's been tons of photo tampering that's been documented. The forensic scientists said they found evidence of photo tampering. They can tell, I can look and tell that pictures have been recycled. They've been just hacked together, just horrible Photoshop hack jobs that are just ridiculous. And then you can go and find the real picture. Like, for example, there's an official picture from the Memphis interview that was August 19th, 1966. The official picture of Paul is a falsification. It's like got half of Paul's head stuck onto Paul's head, and it's just this big old mess. But then you can go and see what Paul really looked like, because there's video footage out there, but there's also another picture of that, and I've got it on my blog where you can just go and look. It's like, oh, well, this is what makes this a difficult thing to research, because there's so much disinformation, and this photo tampering has been going on since it happened, since the switch took place, where they were recycling pictures. Like, there's a Beatle Book Monthly magazine from 1967, which has been shown to be a picture of Paul from 66 that they just airbrushed a mustache on to make it look like it's Paul, or Paul's still around, but he wasn't. So this is the stuff we're dealing with. 50 years of trying to cover this up, basically. So it's not easy to, like I said, legal research is so much easier than trying to figure this out.
I understand that, and I can get that. The Abbey Road's cover is one of the albums that has been very contentious in trying to tell this story, and he brought up a number of really interesting points with that. Why do you think that album cover is kind of the forefront of this entire conspiracy theory? And do you believe it just because there's a lot of people who are trying to read the clues to it? Do you think that is something that should maybe base the case around, if that is photographic evidence on over 1 million albums that have been sold over the years?
Well, I never rely on the clues because they're so open to interpretation, and they really intend for them to be clues. Although when you get to so many, like 400 at least, then it's kind of beyond just coincidence, especially since everything the Beatles did was planned and thought out. Like, it wasn't just random, like everything was planned out. So, I mean, the reverse speech I would rely on. Definitely the photographs, definitely the voice prints. Some of the song lyrics probably were clues. I mean, when he says, here's another clue for you all, the walrus was Paul, well, they're telling you that's a clue. And that was before people were really talking about Paul is dead in a major way. You know, it was like from the White Album from '68. So a year before, it was really big news. And then also, you know, when they play King Lear at the end of I Am the Walrus, and it just happens to be the part, you know, where, oh God, what's his name, gets killed. I mean, it's a death scene, you know, in that part of the play. That's, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's an accident, but it seems a little too apropos to the situation. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff like that.
I have a few questions from our audience that will carry us into the next hour as well, because I got to be honest, you've got our chat room quite hopped up right now, and Twitter as well, so thank you for doing that. All right, let's get to a couple questions here. And Renee is asking, what proof that Paul changed his looks, or that it's a different Paul, because people have plastic surgery all the time?
Forensic science proves it's a different Paul, and it's pictures from mid-'66 to the end of '66. So, okay, so the forensic scientists, when I was talking before about how the palate was larger on Fall, that means his mouth was larger, okay, and his teeth were different. They said, and this is a period of 4 months, okay, this is like summer '66 to the fall of '66 or early '67. They said, look, it's possible for plastic surgery to increase the size of his palate, but it would have required major orthodontic surgery. They would have had to have broken the palatal suture and inserted a prosthetic to widen his mouth, and then he would have had to have worn braces for a year. That wouldn't have been possible to hide. And why would he have done it? He's a singer. He's not going to risk ruining his voice. Barbra Streisand, for example, had considered rhinoplasty, but said that it might have ruined her career. It might have ruined her singing voice, so she didn't do it. And of course, Fall does show evidence of plastic surgery. People think he had plastic surgery in Kenya in fall of '66. I mean, because there are scars. I mean, there's evidence of face masks. You know, he has like weird creases under his eyes sometimes. They're weird, like when he touches his temple in some pictures or some videos, or like these weird ripples. So, I mean, face masks, that's, you know, that's a documented thing. A silicone face mask, they can be very realistic. And I've talked about that in the Splitting Image, where, I mean, there was a white woman from the CIA who actually passed herself off as a black man, you know, got through border security as a black man. And also there was a Chinese guy who escaped from China wearing a face mask as I believe he was like a white man. But these things can be very realistic looking and convincing. And you also wear like matching hand gloves. So people won't notice a difference in the skin tone. Yeah.
No, and I can see that, and I can appreciate that, but a lot of people have had surgery in order to improve their looks. I mean, one only has to look at Michael Jackson's addiction to Diana Ross.
Well, Paul didn't have any plastic surgery. That was Phil who had the plastic surgery. He wasn't doing it to improve his looks. He was doing it to make himself look more like Paul.
Okay.
Why would Paul have needed to have plastic surgery?
Well, I mean, if he was involved in a bad car accident, maybe he didn't want any scars on his face.
Well, yeah.
Maybe his nose was mangled and he needed some rhinoplasty, which isn't pretty either. I mean, I've had rhinoplasty done, and it is the most painful surgery I have ever had. I would never put anybody through that. I mean, if you want to get back at your enemies, make them go for rhinoplasty. That hurts. That hurts. Seriously.
Wow.
Not fun. Not fun. I don't get it.
Paul was certainly not having any plastic surgery to improve his looks. He didn't need to improve his looks.
It may not have been about looks. Maybe it was just about personal choice.
Well, I mean, the bottom line, though, is that it was a different person. You can't change your skull shape.
That is true. And on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on, Tina, here, because we are going to go to our final break of the night. Paul is dead. At least that's the topic we are talking about tonight on Spaced Out Radio with author Tina Foster. Her book, The Splitting Image, Exposing the Secret World of Doubles, Decoys, and Imposter Replacements, can be found online, and I highly suggest you check it out. We're going to get into more of your questions and more discussion about Paul McCartney, dead or alive, in the final hour of Spaced Out Radio, coming up right after this.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night, we get into the all things paranormal. Our guests will be Simon Fraser University professor Paul Kingsbury and ufologist out of Vancouver, Charles Lamoureux. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We say hello to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. And don't forget, you can check out our archives. They are free on our YouTube channel. channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Catacresis. Catacresis is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. And September 28th through 30th, I want all of you up here. Go to questers.ca right now. That's questers.ca. Click on Fall Conference. Get your tickets for the first annual Caribou Paracon, presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. You can listen and come meet me, Grant Cameron, David Weatherly, Lorian Fenton, Ross Allison, Eric Cooper, and many, many people who've been on this show. So I highly suggest you get your tickets now and come on up. Tonight, our guest is author Tina Foster. She is a lawyer in Washington State, and she is also an author, and her great book right out now is The Splitting Image, Exposing the Secret World of Doubles, Decoys, and Imposter-Replacements. Tonight, we are talking about a book she is currently writing about Paul McCartney, as to whether or not the conspiracy that original Paul is dead, and this Paul that we all know as Paul McCartney is an imposter. Tina, thank you so much for being a good sport tonight and coming on into Spaced Out Radio. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you. And, we were just talking about how you were interested in the doubles and imposter replacement.
Yes.
The psyops in general. And I'm really glad that you're having me on to talk about Paul, because he has, in my opinion, is a focal point for exposing the larger agenda of the double psyops. And this is something that I think the powers that be have really tried to keep a lid on, that they use doubles to the extent that they do, because once people know that it's a thing and that it's actually common, it will lose its power, because people will be like, oh, that's not so-and-so, like that's just a double, and then it loses its power and they can't control and influence people that way anymore. So even if you don't believe that Paul was replaced, at least be aware that it does happen, that it goes on, and don't be fooled by doubles.
I want to get to some audience questions here, because I love getting the audience involved in this show, and that's kind of what makes our show special here. Let's get to Joe's question. He is asking, where can people find your forensic proof that you have?
It's on my blog, Plastic Maca. Paul is dead at plasticmaca.blogspot.com. I saved the images of the Wired Italia article that came out in, it was July 2009. And just coincidentally, Paul was on David Letterman that same week to deflect from the findings, basically, because, he's really, it seems like he's really feeling the pressure, because even just recently, there's been a lot about Paul is dead. Like even USA Today had an article dated yesterday about how he was responding to the rumors of Paul is dead. So, and then I think also the fact that he's constantly in the news, and then going to the Cavern Club in Liverpool and going to Paul's house at Forthland Road, that he's really trying to connect himself to Paul and convince people that he's the original Paul. It's keeping him really busy. Yeah.
All right, let's move on here to another question. This one comes from Christopher, and he is asking, because earlier on in hour 2 we talked about a little bit about Elvis. Do you believe Elvis is still alive?
I do not claim to be an Elvis expert at all, but what I have come across in my research, and I'm not saying this is the case with Elvis at all, I don't really have an opinion, but that famous people will be quote unquote killed, and they're not really killed, but they're kind of retired from public life. And then if they, Miles Mathis actually is a researcher who talks about this more and has more knowledge about the whys that this might happen. But if Elvis had information and he tried to get it out there, then they would just say, oh, he's dead. So he's basically shut out forever. And I'm not saying that he isn't dead. I'm just saying that this could happen to a public figure, that they would be killed if needed, even if they weren't really killed. You know what I'm saying? So,
follow-up question from Chris, who is asking, do you think it's usual among people in the music industry to keep that momentum and not have things change, i.e. through a death?
Well, I think the Beatles didn't expect the momentum to last. I guess I'm not sure exactly what he's getting at, but if Paul, well, I mean, I think Paul did die, so the whole thing with the concerts ending, this whole major shift that happened in the fall of '66, I mean, all of that is explained with this paradigm of Paul dying. As far as other bands go, I don't know any other band that's ever had the same momentum that the Beatles did, but they didn't expect it to last themselves, and they were trying to, they were planning to keep touring, and they were planning to keep going as long as possible. But even back in '64, they're like, well, they didn't expect it to last,
So even though they may not have expected their momentum to carry on, let's just say hypothetically that they were expecting the ball to drop, because eventually the well does run dry for certain groups. I mean, you could see it with Queen, you could see it with the Rolling Stones and other groups of that time. Do you think then that maybe, just maybe, because they were on top of their game, that this conspiracy in 1966 of Paul actually dying was one to make sure that momentum didn't shift into fans getting upset that the band is continuing without one of the original members?
Well, I think that if Paul had died and it had just been an accident, people would have found out. But since people didn't, or since it was covered up the way it was, I tend to just believe the accident story. So I think, and also with all of the photo tampering that started right from the beginning, that this was planned way too well to just been an accident that took everybody by surprise. I mean, the double's in place right away, the disinformation campaign starts right away, the clues start getting dropped right away. It was just, to me, it doesn't seem like an accident. Like an accident would be like, oh my God, like what happened? Like, what are we doing? Everybody would just be like in confusion for a while, but this was like, no, don't, stop. We got it all laid out.
How many people, in your opinion, would have known about this conspiracy? Because in order for a conspiracy, no matter what the topic is, the less people who know, the better. And, we even see it with extraterrestrials and UFOs, okay, or what's happening at Area 51. Those people who work out there pretty much sign their life away on a contract to make sure that secrecy is kept. So how many people would have known about this Paul McCartney conspiracy?
Well, friends and family, for sure. I think it's an open secret in showbiz, honestly. I think they all know. but they can't say anything, and officially it's denied. So it's not like there's ever going to be a revelation about it. It's just like you figure it out, and you just kind of have to live with that, you know. It's not. I'm not like hoping that they're gonna just admit it one day, or that he's gonna admit it. It's just you know, you try to get people to see it so that they're not deceived. You know, that's the best that I'm hoping for, really.
But do you think, okay, you put the family and close friends and obvious bandmates, but what about recording companies? What about their engineers? What about their guitar technicians?
Yeah, they all knew. I mean, Jeff Emmerich, he wrote a book called Here, There, and Everywhere, and he said that starting with Sgt. Pepper, they were basically hiding in their studio room. It was number 2, and they like erected these walls around, and they couldn't be seen from the control room. They wouldn't allow visitors. I mean, it's like they tell you, they walk it right up to the line, but they just don't tell you exactly what's happening. They just give you these big hints. It's like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Susan is wondering, are you worried someone might try to harm you to keep you quiet about this conspiracy?
No, because, I mean, I was in the past, but now I'm not, because I'm not an insider. Like, I try to figure out from what's publicly available, but somebody like Heather Mills or Mal Evans, who actually has inside information, those are the ones that are in danger, in my opinion. I don't think they care about me. You know, I'm just somebody, you know.
Well, you are writing about it, and you are going deep, deep, deep undercover here with this.
But I don't have inside information like Mal Evans or whatever Heather Mills found out. So I'm not worried personally, and you know what? I don't care, because some things are worth it. Like the truth is worth it.
Well, Heather Mills did get $150 million to keep quiet.
Yes, exactly.
I can tell you right now, if somebody offered me $150 million to stop this show, I'd be the air would be quiet tomorrow. Right? There are certain things that $150 million can convince me of pretty damn quick.
Sure. But she also had a daughter to worry about, so I don't blame her at all. I mean, I think, you know, she was thoroughly discredited in the media. Like, they attacked her and were horrible to her, but I think it was because they wanted to discredit her in case she said something, then they could just say, oh, well, it's sour grapes, so she's just being nasty, she's just being vindictive because of her divorce. They were already like setting it up to discredit her just in case, but she ended up not disclosing it, but she got pretty close there.
In the forensic evidence that you have seen, you had mentioned that there is a change of eye color a couple of times tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Where can the public see this change of eye color in these photos?
Oh, I have a lot of comps on my blog, plasticmaca.blogspot.com. So Paul had brown eyes and Paul has green eyes, and they show you in like Strawberry Fields Forever in the video and in the Full on the Hill. And I mean, they show you, they're showing people without telling them. And it's like, it might be that it's an Illuminati thing where they have to get people's consent, or they get, if they tell you, they're minimizing their negative karma somehow with their religious beliefs, but they do put the information out there, but it's up to the people to figure it out.
What is the common aspect of people who are investigating this? What is the smoking gun that keeps this one going, this conspiracy between people outside of yourself who are investigating this?
Oh, I think people can tell. A lot of people are suspicious. I mean, back when I was in high school, I wondered what happened to Paul, too. He seemed different. So that is really more than anything that people can just tell the difference in the personality, the difference in the looks, the difference in the music. I mean, it's like there's nothing the same, really. So that's what keeps it going. It's not the Abbey Road cover. The people can just tell at some level. And I mean, maybe some people are fooled by him, but a lot of people aren't. Enough people can see it that it keeps it alive.
I do have to ask, how do you think then the real Paul McCartney died?
I think he was offed. I think he was assassinated. I think they dumped his body in Puget Sound. I know that's horrible and it's sad, but those are the clues that are coming up, because there are a lot of clues for a car crash. Doesn't mean it's an accident. So that's where I think there was a car crash. I just don't believe that it was an accident, But that's just my feeling from the clues, from my research, like putting this into the larger context about why. But that's just my feeling that's what happened.
So who would have offed him then?
Well, in my opinion, it would probably be CIA acting on behalf of British intelligence, because if it happened in America, that would be the muscle that would have been behind it. But it's like Tavistock Institute of psychological warfare, that they're going in, they're manipulating the music scene, the drug scene, the counterculture. Like there's this whole social engineering agenda that was going on at that time. And the Beatles, you control the Beatles, guess what? You control all of those people that look to them for guidance. And the Beatles, Paul said that they would not influence their fans. They wouldn't tell them not to smoke. They wouldn't tell them not to drink. He just wasn't like that. But Paul was the first British pop star to come out talking openly about how he took LSD, which of course a lot of people were like, oh, I've got to try that. I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, let's face it. Society is always one to follow trends. I mean, don't forget it. One time, the bandana and the mullet were popular.
Sure.
And ladies wearing like the size of satellites for bangs that were, hairsprayed at least, 8-9 inches high. I mean, these were fashion trends.
That's hot.
You totally missed the 80s, didn't you?
No, I remember the Aquanet.
Oh yeah, who didn't have at least 6 cans of Aquanet underneath their sink?
Right.
I mean, no wonder the 80s are the biggest reason why there's a hole in the ozone layer.
All those women with big hair.
Exactly. In regards to this social engineering that you think, because we only got about 6.5 minutes left with you, do you think it was to corrupt the youth through music?
Yes, absolutely. Corrupt the youth, corrupt society. Basically, they were attacking classical society, bringing in the counterculture. And it was basically like a war of consciousness, and they were using drugs. Like Bertrand Russell was talking about controlling people using drugs. And like I mentioned, Aleister Crowley had done experiments with mescaline and how to control people with drugs. And then, Timothy Leary was talking about, well, you combine the psychedelic music with the drugs, and then that's even the most powerful brainwashing device we have. I mean, it's like, yeah, they were basically trying to make the people that would oppose the Vietnam War, they were trying to divert them into drugs and to make that whole resistance impotent. That was part of it. But also to keep the people diverted and to keep them passive, to keep them. Well, have you read Brave New World? I mean, it's kind of like that.
I have not.
Yeah, it's like you keep people in a drug, like a mental prison, but they like it because they like the drugs, but they're controlled through it. So you use that to fight your opposition, like you quell the resistance through the drugs.
I get that, but and let's face it, the CIA has not been the cleanest when it's come to their involvement with keeping, the drug culture going. So it does make sense if you can control the part of the population with that.
Right.
I mean, that's a conspiracy theory all on its own.
Mm-hmm.
But when you include music, why the Beatles? Why weren't they doing this with Led Zeppelin or some of the bigger American bands at that time?
Oh, well, Led Zeppelin. I mean, Jimmy Page bought Aleister Crowley's house.
Yes, because he was addicted to Crowley.
Well, I mean, Crowley was co-founder of the Tavistock Institute and was an MI5 agent. So, but I mean, the Beatles were the most popular, influential band, so you controlled them. That's gold, right? I mean, people are going to do stuff just because the Beatles did it. And even George Harrison admitted, like, after Fall talked about taking LSD, the whole world went crazy. I mean, I guess 50 years hence, people don't realize how influential the Beatles were, and I probably don't even really, since I was born after them, but they were very influential. They were even more influential than any head of state, according to one author I quoted, but I can't remember his name offhand. So, yeah, you get control of them, you hijack the music, the message. I mean, that's perfect.
We only have about 2.5 minutes left with you tonight. And I want to say thank you for being a trooper tonight and stating your case and everything like that. It's been a lot of fun, very interesting.
Good.
But where do you go with your research from here?
Well, I'm writing this Paul's Dead book that's called Plastic Mecca, The Secret Death and Replacement of Beatle, Paul McCartney. And really, it's a sweeping review of the history of Paul's Dead, the evidence, the clues. I mean, there's even Bible code stuff in there that supports my theory. But, I'm trying to get the information laid out, and then we go from there. But it's like such a big, convoluted mess of deliberate disinformation and obfuscation and, just trying to weed through it and avoid the disinformation mines. It's, it's a challenge. So I'm going to get this book out, try to get the information as clear as possible, and then see where it goes after that. And people do give me information. I'm hoping that people will use me as a contact point to to get information out to people. And yeah.
One final question for you. Where can people find your books?
On Amazon, just look for Tina Foster. And I'm on Plastic Maca blog. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook and MeWe. So, yeah, Tina Foster.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you, Tina Foster, for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight and talking to us about Paul McCartney and whether or not he is dead. Really appreciate you sharing your facts and your information that you came with us. And yeah, we got to talk doppelgangers sometime.
Absolutely.
That would be fun. All right. Thank you so much for coming on. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, we have Everett Themer with The Encounter. Let's get to our news of the night. The weird, the strange, the WTF coming up next. Welcome back to the news section of Spaced Out Radio, where we get to The Encounter, where we talk about the weird, the strange, the WTF in the news of the day. You can find all of our stories at our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/SOR The Encounter. And with that, we bring in our intrepid reporter / news director, Everett Themer. My man, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm still on Team Stump, my friend. I'm still on Team Stump.
I bet you are.
Who doesn't like a good conspiracy? And I'm going with Team Stump.
Show me a good conspiracy, though.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. What a fun show. I'd never done the Paul is Dead episode before or had a guest with that. There is some intriguing stuff, but I got to tell you, I'm going to be honest. In my opinion, and my opinion only, I'm just not convinced. I am not convinced that we are dealing with a secondary Paul.
That was a great conversation, but I'm not convinced either. The only thing I can say is that anytime you can work Milli Vanilli into a conversation,
yes,
it's a good night.
Oh, you have to work Milli Vanilli in. You have to. I mean, when it made it perfect, and just hindsight being 2020, if I could have got a Rick Astley in there, it would have made my night. How did I forget about Rick Astley?
I think you were captivated by the idea of Paul being replaced.
I hear you. I hear you, my friend. All right. Let us, Mr. A-Hole Skeptic on Twitter with a huge snark here. Can't we just take a 15-minute break? My head is still spinning.
I'm kind of with him.
That was a lot of information. A lot of information there. Intriguing. Absolutely intriguing.
It was. And, it opened up, I would say, more questions than I've had over that whole theory. But it was definitely interesting.
And the one thing I want to tell people out there listening, you don't have to agree with the guest. You really don't. But hear them out. Hear them out and then form the opinion. And I can tell you, bluntly, my opinion, I'm still not convinced. Still not convinced. I need more. This is one where I would say there's enough Paul McCartney DNA evidence out there where we could get something. The forensics isn't selling me. It is not selling me.
Yeah,
I need
agree.
DNA. I need DNA.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever. I don't see myself ever buying into this idea. It just, to me, she makes a good argument, but it just doesn't make sense to me. There are too many reasons.
You know what, though? I would like to get a really somebody to delve into some of these conspiracy theories in music, though, because that one about Jimi Hendrix, where allegedly his manager took him out? That would be a good one.
That would be a fun one to explore.
Yeah.
But you're right. There are a lot of music conspiracy theories or things that surround the music industry. But how much of that is just simply the fact that, in a way, the music industry itself is kind of, I mean, it's not only pop culture and something that people look at, but in a weird way, it is a little bit mysterious too.
Well, I mean, that's the beautiful part about music, is there is a mystery to it. And you just never know what's going on with it. And hopefully that continues. Hopefully that continues, because music can still be very, very influential, unless you're writing a song where 90% of your lyrics is the word cake.
Hey, those are the tough ones to write when you're only working with a couple of words.
Reminds me of that brutal song that's been downloaded over 1 billion times by Drake. That cell phone song. What's that? Hotline Bling or something like that? If you want to torture people, just play that song. Just play that song. You want to clear your house out of pests and bugs and mother-in-laws? Play that song.
You just ruined the music conversation by bringing Drake into it.
Well, we're talking some reality here. You want to get rid of the mother-in-law, you just play that song over and over again. I mean, it worked well for Manuel Noriega. Right?
That's terrible.
I know. And he's a Canadian artist, too. That's what drives me nuts. All right. Let's get to the news of the day. What's on the encounter?
Well, Andy Haldane, the chief economist for the Bank of England, has issued a statement this week where he has stated basically that he believes, and he has some studies to back this up, that jobs that require thinking will be replaced by artificial intelligence, possibly within the next 45 years.
Sadly, I believe that.
They're calling it the artificial intelligence revolution. And he uses the examples of previous industrial revolutions where manual tasks and manual labor was basically taken out of human hands and replaced by machines. He believes that as computers and AI develop at an even faster rate, soon the analysis and general computing that is done still to this day kind of in people's heads will be totally unnecessary and done entirely by machines. Everything from accounting to predictive analysis to statistical analysis, things like that. And that people need to begin to create or develop skills that they can use when this begins to take their jobs.
Here's the thing with this whole AI technology, because you think about it. AI can make a population very, very poor very quickly and more reliant on government handouts. When you eliminate jobs, whether it's technical, whether it's through brain power, or whether it's through physical labor, where do they expect, or these government officials expect, that tax base is going to come from if AI keeps taking over even the most menial of tasks, say, within the next 45 years?
That's a good point. And they've used the examples of the Industrial Revolution, essentially, even back then, widen the gap between the rich and the not so rich, because the laborers were being replaced and they had nowhere, or there was no need for the skills that they had or a place for them to use those skills because machines were doing that. And the idea of a universal basic income has been tossed around to kind of balance things out, but that has its own set of pitfalls. I mean, that creates almost not exactly a welfare state, but it could potentially widen that gap even more, even though it sounds like a potential solution to the problem.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, if these companies and these people are looking at this, if you don't have people making money, you don't have people buying things, which is kind of the whole gist of capitalism. And if they are not making money and not being able to buy things, how are these companies going to succeed? I mean, even the automotive industry, which over the last 25, 30 years has become highly automated, still is one of the biggest employers in North America because they still need people to do a lot of the jobs.
But what happens if the front end of that, the accounting, the statistical analysis, what happens when those jobs are replaced? I mean, every day there's a new development, it seems, that could potentially replace somebody on that auto line.
That is very true. That is very true. I just don't think it, as much as we are excited about the future of AI, I don't think a lot of these companies have really thought about what it's going to do. I mean, you could sit there and you can make, 25,000 cars and trucks a year, but if you got nobody to buy them, you're only killing your own clients. It's almost the same thing, with these drug dealers who are pushing out fentanyl. Example, my nephew. Right? I mean, you're killing your own clientele.
But what happens if we have, let's call them, for lack of better words, working robots, and then we have thinking robots or thinking artificial intelligence? At what point does the human factor sort of become an afterthought in civilization?
Well, do we end up like George Orwell's 1984? Is that really the future human Bible?
Boy, I think we all hope not, huh?
Oh, I agree. I hope not either. That would suck. That would very much suck.
The question I have with this, though, is they're recommending people expand their skill set. At this point in time, where do you expand your skill set to? What do you go after? I can remember, and I'm sure you remember this too, back in let's say the mid-'80s, when VCR and computer repair was the career of the future, and you'd never go jobless if you knew how to do these things. Well, now, DVD player breaks, you go buy a new one. You don't fix it. Computers break. Sure, sometimes you might have a minor thing fixed, but generally you transfer your data over to another one. So those jobs went obsolete. What do we look at to train people to do as artificial intelligence becomes more predominant in the world?
I agree. We could be here all night talking about that.
It's an interesting concept.
It's interesting but scary. And I think a lot more people, especially those who are creating this, need to read George Orwell's 1984 over again. That's just my opinion.
I'm willing to bet that a lot of people involved in the AI industry probably haven't read it.
Mm-hmm. You never know, my friend. You never know. Let's move on to the next story.
There's a company in Japan called Gatebox, and they have developed a holographic virtual assistant that will eventually can potentially interact with you as your wife.
Okay.
They've developed this personal assistant that it's an anime hologram, and it will recognize your voice, recognize your face. It has obviously its own holographic image, and they are continually developing updates with the intent of this one day being a social partner, or they call it a wife.
Yeah, but Japan's always trying to, get everything from being a wife. I mean, they married a guy to a car. They've married it to already a robot or a sex doll or something like that. What's wrong with their women? Japanese women are gorgeous. Gorgeous. What's wrong?
I think they're focused on technology.
Is it the social ineptitude, maybe? Because of the technology?
I don't know. I don't know that you can say that they are, maybe to Western standards, they might be socially different, but I don't think that you can call it ineptitude. I mean, they certainly have their own customs and traditions, and they've lived by them for thousands of years, and they seem to do quite well with them.
Okay. I can accept that.
But I mean, it is interesting that they have consistently developed, like you said, sort of electronic or digital or mechanical substitutes for human interaction.
I understand. And it's terrible. It really is terrible.
But wait until this merges with those dolls that they've developed. That could potentially be the perfect spouse. It's designed to learn your habits and understand you better.
But what if she learns nagging?
Oh, don't go there. You can have her reprogrammed. There has to be a plug-in.
What if she tries to kill you?
There has to be a plug-in or an update to fix that.
I mean, if it's like one of these iOS updates by Apple or Microsoft updates, it's going to be like every week, man. Every week.
It gives a whole new view to the term.
I don't want
rebooting.
That. I don't want that. I'll take the real thing. There are a lot of beautiful women out there, and if I ever became single again, I think that it wouldn't be easy, or it would be much easier finding a real woman than something plastic or silicone or whatever it is.
Bank of England says artificial intelligence is the wave of the future.
I hear you. Yeah, let them live that. I'll continue with the old school way there. Let's move on.
Well, I know you know a bit about this story. There is a Facebook group started by a gentleman named Caleb Moon in Spokane, Washington.
Yeah.
And they're suggesting that the residents of Spokane go out and everybody buy 5 box fans and point them towards Canada and blow the smoke back up north.
When I read that this morning, I laughed so hard. Now, Spokane is a pretty big city. I mean, with Washington State University around that area and Pullman, which is close by, I mean, you got an area that suits about 550,000 people.
Correct.
That's a pretty big area. Now you multiply that by 5 fans, portable fans that you attach to your roof. Would it really make a difference? I think Mother Nature would disagree with that.
Well, they said that the math works, but some other people have analyzed it, and the math just doesn't work. Just even the way a fan works, by pulling air through it, it's going to pull potentially dirty air and just bring more dirty air into the area, possibly from the California wildfires.
Well, and that's one of the arguments here. That area of Washington State is being hit by both the California wildfire smoke and the British Columbia wildfire smoke. So how do they tell the difference between illegal immigrant smoke and illegal state immigration smoke?
Hey, don't complain about getting the California smoke. That's tariff-free.
Well, maybe we should start charging you duty and tariffs on our smoke for stealing it.
Hey, that's free smoke.
Well, I realize that. It's not free. Our trees are burning for that. Properties are burning. There's probably an AI doll one of the houses that's burned up that is going down there.
Well, you have to give it to the guy for at least trying to come up with a way to clean at least his town's air.
I think somebody has been using the term "blame Canada" a little too seriously.
Maybe.
I mean,
maybe it's me.
Does our forest fire smoke come down there and have a little sound in the wind that says, "I'm sorry"?
You know, actually, we have gotten here in the Chicago area. We have gotten particulate from your fires before, where it's affected the sunrise and the sunset and the view of the moon.
Last year,
this year too.
Oh, this year too. Weird.
Yeah.
Weird. All right. Well, we got time for a quick one here, my friend.
Every year, it seems more and more like golf and hockey are becoming more and more like the same sport.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh, it's true, though. A gentleman at a Massachusetts golf club was arrested for what they call mayhem for biting off the finger of another golfer.
What does that have to do with hockey? We don't bite the fingers off of people.
It sounds like something a hockey. Wasn't there a hockey player that bit the side of somebody's face or ear? Or
that was Brad Marchand bit Alex Burrows' finger in the 2011 Stanley Cup Final during the scrum in front of the net. Burrows was giving him a little bit of a face wash, and Marchand, the dirty little bastard, he bit down on his finger through the glove.
So it's exactly almost the same.
No, not even close. This is more Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. More a boxing thing.
Oh. Either way, golf is getting more and more violent every year.
Golf is a dangerous sport. Did I ever tell you a story? I almost fought a guy on the golf course.
I've done that, yeah. I don't think you've told me your story, though.
Oh, I was playing golf with my dad, his buddy, and my buddy. And these guys were finishing up on the green, and I decided to shoot a layup with my 4-iron. Now, my 4-iron, I usually hit about 185, 190. And, well, I put this 4-iron just perfect, like 215 onto the green. And one of the best golf shots I've ever made. And I'm like, oh, crap, that went on the green, and these guys were still on there. So I quickly yelled, sorry, a 4, and then sorry, right? Well, this one dude walks up to my golf ball and throws it at my dad. So I'm like 21. Wow. I'm like 21 years old. I'm in my, pretty good shape. Kind of hockey fighting back in the day. And I walked up to him and I said, hey, dude, I'm sorry. And then he starts lipping off my dad. And I said, dude, don't talk to my dad that way. And he says, what the F are you going to do about it? And he takes his hand, and I had a button-up golf shirt on, and he ripped my golf shirt. And I said to him point blank, I said, oh, bad move. I said, now I got to hurt you. So I started going at him, and as I grabbed a hold of him, and as I am about to punch his friggin' lights out, his buddy steps right in front of him and says, I'm a lawyer. Touch him. You're going to court.
Wow, this sounds a lot like a hockey story, too.
Oh, yeah. We just happened to be on the closest green by the clubhouse. I walk into the clubhouse, and the golf pro is showing prospective new members, trying to sell them on membership. And I walked in there, and I said, is this what your effing club is all about? I said, I want that guy removed. He actually got banned for life. Banned for life.
You had some snow and some ice, and this is a hockey story.
Oh, I know. Hey, we got to get to the thought of the day. We're running late here. Hold on. Thought of the Day happens every night at this time, where we take your questions or my question that I post on social media, and we read your answers on the air. So today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What is the silliest conspiracy theory out there, and why? Everett, what's your favorite?
Mine is the green M&Ms affect you differently than all the other M&Ms.
I never got that one. Never, ever got that one. Well, we got a few on Flat Earth today. Matthew's a Flat Earth, says that one's ridiculous. Grant jumps in and says the Space Shuttle Challenger cover-up, that the crew survived. Chuck, too many to pick from, but he said he may answer later. I don't know if he did or not. We got to scroll down. Greg is all about we didn't land on the moon. Really? There's your M&Ms. Damien says Flat Earth. Dennis, Flat Earth. Bazooka Joe jumps in and says that your hair makes you look good, Dave, and the reasons are self-explanatory. Wow. Thanks, Bazooka Joe. Jason, Flat Earth. Nancy, that a healer removed a hernia mesh. Seriously? Kevin, if she smokes, she pokes. Weird. Aldo, I don't believe that we landed on the moon, so in my opinion, it's not a silly one. However, the conspiracy theory that Elvis still lives in Michigan seems a bit silly. Matt, about the 2016 presidential election was hacked by Russians. Tim, the royal family are pedophile reptilians. David Icke and Alex Jones push this. Grant jumps on in. Concerning the one about the Russians hacking the election, don't buy that. Kat, about the moon. She believes we went. Karen, scarcity is real. Ozzy Rob, that diamonds are rare. Boy, did the Beers family sell us a big one on that one. Seems like we never run out of diamonds, eh?
Never will.
Yeah. And Ozzy Andrew, that Australia does not exist and that we are actors paid by NASA. That one. What are the flat earthers thinking on that? Seriously.
Wait, Australia does exist?
Apparently so. Apparently we got a few listeners. Ozzy Tanya, I know you're listening right now. If you're playing hooky at work still, message us and let us know that Australia really exists. We'll figure it out. All right, Karen, JFK Jr. is alive and helping Trump. Flat Earth from Vivster. Adams with the moon theory. Flat Earth from David, same as Mary. David Chase, former guest on this show, is about Flat Earth. And Michael McNeil, Paul McCartney is dead and was replaced by a very talented lookalike who's a great singer-songwriter and musician. Go figure. That's your Thought of the Day. There will be a new one tomorrow night. Everett Themer, where can people find the encounter, my friend?
They can find the encounter at facebook.com/SOR, the encounter online.
Appreciate you bringing the news forward to us tonight. I want to say a big thank you to author Tina Foster for the first couple hours of the show, coming on to talk about the conspiracy theory that the real Paul McCartney is dead, and the one we know is Sir Paul is an imposter. Not sure I'm buying it. Still not convinced. But it was worth a good shot for Tina, and we thank her for coming on and being a good sport. Tomorrow night on the show, I'm sure you're going to like this one. Simon Fraser University professor Paul Kingsbury joins us, along with Vancouver ufologist Charles Lamoureux. We're talking all things paranormal, as Professor Kingsbury actually got a giant grant, private grant, to study the paranormal on a university level. We're going to find out about that at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget you can check out questers.ca right now, questers.ca. Click on the fall conference. Get your tickets for the first annual Caribou Paracon, presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. It's September 28th through 30th. Come on up to beautiful British Columbia. I want to meet you here as we talk all things strange and weird that weekend. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thank you to everyone listening in at work, in your homes, in your cars, wherever you may be. Special thanks to everybody on Spreaker for a very great chat tonight. The snark was beautiful at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Thanks, Neptune5, for dropping in. Haven't seen you in a long while. And to the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook. You guys were fantastic as well. See you soon, Uncle Dale. Thanks for sharing the show, doing your part to make us bigger and better every single night, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.